We got the latest about LSU's injuries. One Cajuns player no longer playing football. And also we got the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame 2026 class announced. We got all that and a whole lot more coming your way on the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. And welcome back to another edition of the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. Great to have you here. Hopefully you're having a good Thursday. We're getting that much closer to the weekend, which means we're getting that much closer to another game day. The weather outside is going to be looking very nice for a lot of these big ball games. And I'm going to focus on two in particular on this 3-and-out Thursday. And it's more important to kind of focus on the LSU Tigers. First things first. Tigers released their first availability report heading into the game against Florida. Nothing's changed with Braylon Moore and Trades Green both being listed as questionable. Interestingly enough, wideout Destin Hill is also listed as questionable. And then you have Zion Williamson, the defensive tackle, listed as out for the big SEC opener against Florida. Now, I'm kind of surprised about Braylon Moore being listed as questionable because Brian Kelly did say during the SEC teleconference on Wednesday morning, right around 10 o'clock, he was going to be listed as probable. So maybe something happened during Wednesday's practice, or maybe it's the way the SEC kind of operates with how they control, the way it's listed in injury reports. It's not like how when you look at the Saints injuries and you can kind of see, hey, this guy did not practice, and they list him as questionable or probable. It might just be either he's questionable or he's out type thing. Maybe something happened during Wednesday's practice, but I'm sure we'll hear tonight what Brian Kelly has to say with his weekly coaches show right around 7 o'clock. But beyond that, no real headlines to really deep dive into from the SEC teleconference, besides the fact that Braylon Moore is starting to look a little bit better. Again, heading into Wednesday's practices, things could have changed. But worst case scenario, DJ Chester will be the likely fill-in center on Saturday if we don't hear more about Moore's status. I feel like if we don't hear him say, in terms of him being Brian Kelly, saying he's probable, more likely than not, he is going to play, I would not be surprised if DJ Chester does become the center on Saturday in this SEC opener against Florida. And I want to see how he does. Because at the end of the day, you need to have a good center and help build that continuity, that synergy with the rest of the offensive line. That is going to be the biggest key to victory on the offensive side of the football in my mind. But at the end of the day, I still believe that the defense will be the big headline when we look back at this game on Monday. On Friday's show, I'll give out some picks. And again, maybe some updates on LSU's injury situation if we hear more from the head honcho when he talks to Chris Blair over at TJ Ribs in Baton Rouge. And we'll continue the conversation when it comes to injuries because we got to flip it over to the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Coach Des spoke with the media last night and mentioned, among other changes, that the offensive line had some injuries and they were banged up going into the game against Como, against the Mizzou Tigers, namely along the offensive line. Des mentioned that Mackey, he's out for the week, but could be back in action for the conference opener against Marshall. Meanwhile, Caden Monroe will be out for at least 2 weeks. It's two big players on the offensive line that are not going to be part of the action. That's going to hurt this team in several different ways. Then you have John Bragg deciding to hang up his cleats, opting to no longer play football. Again, this is per Coach Des during his time with the media on Wednesday. That was just a surprising thing to see. I was like, man, we talked about it yesterday with the announcement that an LSU Tiger was no longer part of the program. That was more because of a fit situation. This is more of a, hey, I don't want to do this anymore type of thing, which I kind of have to respect. Is eventually you just got to realize you aren't at the level to play like college football. Or maybe the injuries became too much and he's like, I'd much rather have a comfortable life after football. He knows where the end of the rope is too. So I got to respect him acknowledging, hey, like this isn't fun to me anymore. And I'm hoping nothing but the best for him in his post-athletic career. And I talked about it a lot with LSU potentially losing their center, Braylon Moore, but the Cajuns having 3 offensive linemen on the bench against an SEC team is going to be throwing a monkey wrench into the game plan. Doing this against a normal opponent is a challenge in and of itself, regardless of who it is. And it's probably even more of a bear because of the fact that you are going up against a team like Mizzou that's going to probably handle business in a big way defensively. That front seven is going to give them a hard time, especially, I think, on the left side. Because Matt Broussard, he's going to be getting the start at left guard. That's a freshman. Then you have Jacoby Eisen behind him. Again, that left guard alone is going to be a redshirt sophomore and a freshman. Then you've got a redshirt junior and a sophomore at the left tackle, according to the depth charts that were released on Wednesday night when, again, Coach Des spent his time with the media. Daniel Beal will likely have to have a very quick hand with those 2 guys on the left side. Thankfully, it's not his right, but my God, he is going to have to dink and dunk a lot. He's going to have to get rid of that ball very quickly. A lot like what we saw going to the New Orleans Saints. Spencer Rattler, he had a very quick kind of trigger when it comes to getting rid of the football. I think he maybe had like 1 or 2 seconds before he let the ball go. Now, mind you, live bullets are flying a lot more difficult. The difficulty's way higher when it comes to the NFL versus college, but you're going to have to see Daniel Beal really get rid of that ball to avoid the pressure that's going to be coming to him, and also, more importantly, avoid injuries, because this team has been cursed with the injury bug at quarterback since Dez took over in a weird kind of cosmic twist. But I'm hoping things will be all right. Obviously, we'll see Lunch Winfield, what he can do. Lunch Winfield didn't look half bad in the doses he was. I'm still kind of surprised they didn't utilize him in a Levi Lewis back in the first year of Billy Napier, where he pretty much was used as like that every 4th drive and also would be a major impact player. That's just how I saw things from the game against McNeese last week, where I just was like, okay, why didn't you do this? But also, we're talking about youth. I want to flip it over to the defensive side of the ball with Brent Gordon getting a start at corner as a freshman. And again, this feels like you're throwing him into the fire and hoping things kind of stick. Because I've seen it way too many times over the years, players going out there in a big game like this, not necessarily stinking it up, but very much having to kind of learn a lot on the fly when it comes to just starting in a game, especially against the SEC. I can remember seeing Brandon Harris when he was a quarterback at LSU. He immediately was battling for his life against Auburn as a freshman. He was thrown into just a complete and utter dumpster fire, and he had to learn in a big way and quick, fast, and in a hurry. I think this is what we're going to see from Brent Gordon up against this Mizzou offense. And we'll wrap up the pod on a little bit of a different note, because the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame announced their 2026 Hall of Fame induction class. And one name in particular, I got to say, and I love all the ones they announced this year, Jonathan Lucroy finally getting the nod. He's part of the 2026 class. Lucroy played for the Raging Cajuns, was one of the better players of that era of like the mid-2000s. Became a 3rd-round draft pick in the 2007 draft. Was a part of several programs. Was drafted by Milwaukee. Jumped around a lot through a lot of different programs. Played 12 years in the league. Made a couple All-Star appearances in 2014 and 2016. And was actually 4th in the voting. This is something I didn't necessarily realize. He was 4th for the 2014 NL Most Valuable Player award. Just and all around, just a great guy. One of the great disciples of Tony Robichaux and a phenomenal long career in the MLB. I'll never forget, not long after Coach Robichaux passed, Lucroy was supposed to, right after the game, make the trip over to Lafayette, Louisiana to be part of the funeral proceedings and everything, and making sure he went there to pay his respects. And then he gets in a very just bad injury during a game. He gets concussed, so he's got to kind of get his mind back right. But I think he wound up still showing up to the funeral the next day. That's what kind of man he is, and was honoring, I think, one of the greatest coaches to ever be a coach in the world of college baseball, Tony Robichaux. Some other notable Hall of Famers got announced as well. One that was announced previously was Todd McClure, a offensive lineman number 72 for the Tigers. Had a hell of a career. Meanwhile, Joe Horn getting inducted into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, 4-time Pro Bowl receiver, and the man that broke out the cell phone celebration on Sunday Night Football back when it was on ESPN. That game will go down in history for several different reasons. Everybody loves this man. I've got a story about him, but I'm going to leave that story, that sleeping dog lie. Maybe if you meet me in person, I'll tell you about that story. How about that? Sylvia Fowles also got inducted. Pat Williams. Warren Morris gets the Ambassador Award. And then you have head coach of the LSU Tigers back in the day, one John Brady. 402 games in 25 seasons. That's how many wins he had over his career between Samford, LSU, and Arkansas State. And also helped lead the Tigers to the Final Four back in 2006. And that was a fun time, to say the least. I can remember being a junior in high school and just watching the NCAA tournament. That was like one of the first true tournaments I have like vivid memories of. And again, I was like 16, 17 years old. I watched a good bit of those NCAA tournaments back in the 2000s, but this one was like where I was like, okay, I am all in on this. I would get interested when the Cajuns would play in NCAA tournaments, but they would always get out in the first round. They were playing at like 11 a.m. and I was in high school. And, back then we weren't able to have those games readily available on a stream. Back then you didn't have much streaming platforms. Now you have a streaming platform for damn near everything. But I digress. When I see this Hall of Fame class, it continues to amaze me how loaded it is. Because, like, you look at the last few years from, I'd say, 2018 to now, every single one of these classes has, like, no doubters. Like, absolutely, you have to put this guy in. Like, there's so many of those guys. And I guarantee you there's going to be at least like 20 more of these classes that are going to be loaded. And I feel like they may be a lot more top heavy when it comes to the world of football, but they still deserve a lot of love. Dwayne Strother getting his flowers because of his high school football career. Really great to see that. He was the second winningest high school girls basketball coach, retired a couple years ago with a whopping 1235 and 395 record and 11 championship game appearances, 5 state titles for Florian High out in Sabine Parish. You gotta love it. If you're a fan of high school athletics, that's the guy that everybody can remember and be like, okay, we love seeing that. Sylvia Fowles, mentioned her earlier. Just, it's a really good 8-person Hall of Fame class for 2026. So shout out to the good folks at the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame in 2026 out in Natchitoches. I'm sure it's going to be a party and a half, especially once John Brady gets to talking, because I can remember at my previous stay how many times I would talk to John Brady, and John Brady was just a ball of fire right out the gate, and he was always a fun conversation on the air as well as off the air. But that's about all I got for today's edition of the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast on a 3 and Out Thursday. So make sure you go check us out on social media. Just search Louisiana Lunch Hour. You'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also on that TikTok, YouTube as well. You can also check out the podcast on a little video form. We're working on getting true video up there. We're just building the podcast step by step, beat by beat. Because at the end of the day, that's all you can do is keep on stepping. So make sure you subscribe today if you haven't already. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave us a 5-star review, as well as on Spotify. Go ahead and leave a review for us as well. That way we can wind up being in more and more people's algorithm. And more importantly, we can be more in tune with what you want. So go ahead and check us out on social media and follow us if you haven't already on Spotify, or subscribe today on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, I've been Clint Doming, and this is the Louisiana Lunch Hour Podcast.